Hello everybody. Did I move this? I don't think I did, but maybe it moved itself. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. Apologize for starting a little late. I realized I hadn't gotten a couple things done. Like I didn't close that door behind me that I normally do because I'm not sure if it affects the light. But all right. I'm waiting to see if somebody's here. Oh, there's Quindy. And Quindy's posting links already because Quindy is awesome and the moderator we could not live without. And it's not hyperbole. I think I mean it. All right, so what am I going to do? Actually, I just remembered that I forgot to bring something over to show you. So hold on just a sec. I like to do my little recap of what we've done previously. So the past few weeks I've been working on this, which was the February miniature of the month. You can see that this Loctite poster tack does what it says on the box, and it locks tight. But I actually find that easier to get off of the the Bones USA for sure. I guess I hadn't really tested it on the prints. So this was the February miniature of the month, and I painted the store version, and I kind of wanted to do like a tabletop version and iteration. So I tried metallics on this, and I also kind of played around with some of the saturation and values on some of the equipment to see how that worked. And I actually think I do like the slightly brighter and lighter version of the clothing on the one that I've been working on the stream, which is probably still on Twitch, but if you're new here, Reaper archives all of their Twitch stream videos onto their YouTube channel, and there's a playlist for each stream, so you can go and find from if you scroll down to the bottom, you get the most recent episodes, and then you can kind of catch up. So there are actually, some things that I like about this tabletop version, I think more than the, fancier one that I put extra time into. But I kind of like to do that kind of thing on the I still haven't fixed where I got metallic on the one that's non-metallic. I like to kind of iterate and explore and discuss mistakes. So I treated the shading on the metallic and the non-metallic versions the same. Like I even put them in the same location, and you can see that you get a very similar effect. The difference you'll get with these metallics is as I move it around, the reflection changes, and that's what a lot of people like about metallics. It feels more natural. That is how metal objects act. But it's kind of like we make an arbitrary cutoff point, because hair does something very similar. If someone has shiny hair, as they move or as you move in relation to looking at them, you're going to see the reflections from that hair in a different place. But we don't paint hair on miniatures with shiny or glossy paints as a rule. There are some people who use paint finish as an element of contrast and duplicating textures in their work, but a lot of people just like, super matte paints for regular surfaces on miniatures, and then just metallics for shiny surfaces. But it is an arbitrary cutoff point of what we're duplicating real life materials with the finish of the paint and what we're not. So where we add shadows and highlights where appropriate. I mean, I did add highlights. I used lighter value metallics to add little, pinpoints of light. It's all an illusion. It's just how do we choose to make that illusion? The kind of paint you use isn't what makes it realistic. It's where you think about those light and dark places and how that acts and stuff like that. Anyway, because these are 3D objects, that is why some people prefer metallics. I don't have a problem with metallics now that I know how to paint them. Michael Proctor very kindly helped me through my period of being lame at that. But because had to be photographed and taking pictures of things that have metallics on them is a whole other skill set that I'm not especially good at. So that is why I paint non-metallic metals a lot. All right, so that's what I had done previously. I'm pretty sure that you can still buy this miniature, even though it was like the February miniature of the month. I don't think it stopped existing. Reaper makes it in-house. One imagines they can make more if they so wish. So what am I doing today? And that was a question I spent several hours asking myself. I've been feeling, I don't know, really kind of uninspired lately. Just not sure what I want to do. Oh, I took my face off. I don't know if that's better or worse, but there we are. I didn't have the light all the way up. So these were figures that I painted, and I have a couple more, with the Reaper Super Washes, if you remember those. If you weren't around last year, Reaper Super Washes were a kind of special release for ReaperCon, sort of a beta almost of how we're not supposed to call it, they're not contrast paints, but they're meant to be used in a similar way. The other way I've been thinking of it as matte inks. So you can paint them over transparently, like over zenithal priming or slap chop or whatever the kids are into today, as a way of doing quick color. You can add them as color intensifiers, or you can kind of do a one coat thing, which is how these were painted. Except they weren't really one coat, most of these, because what I like to do instead of the slap chop zenithal pre-shading is I'm finding I like treating it kind of like watercolor, where I start with the lightest color and then I add shading as I deem it necessary. So most of these, like, you know, this maybe had one coat and then this had multiple coats or coats with a darker color to make that shading kind of thing. But what this doesn't do, and the same is kind of true of contrast, or I'm forgetting the name of Army Painter's version right now off the top of my head. Viejo just came out with the Express paints. Everybody's jumping on the train. But what do you do with metallics is kind of the question. So that's why these guys have a bunch of white on them still, is because those were areas that should be metal. And my attempts, I didn't bring that one over, but my attempts to do kind of non-metallic metal with it were unsatisfying. I think this is one, zoom in a little on him. I think this is one where I painted, you know, a flat coat of metallics and then did super wash or a regular wash over it. And I'm not super jazzed about this. I mean, because it's metallic, you get that thing where as you move it, it reflects. But it doesn't have that nice, even if you're not moving it, here's where it's shinier and darker kind of thing that is happening on this one where I did deliberate shading. So I was thinking about it. Actually, I was thinking about how am I going to do the metallics on these for like a million years, because I would like to finish these up at some point. And I remembered a technique I had been taught long ago, and I'm trying to remember who it was, and I should have looked it up. But in the class I took, you worked up from ink, like a dark ink, and added more and more metallic as you went. And so it kind of does the demi-metallics, shaded metallics, whatever you want to call them, a different way. But you can do the same thing, I figure. We're going to find out, I guess. With matte paint, you just start with matte paint and you add more and more metallic. And I guess it's kind of like working from the darkest color up. Will it look right with these things where I've done the opposite, where I've done the watercolor way and started with white and shaded down? But as I was saying previously, we are kind of, in our hobby, we've accepted that the line between how this thing acts and how that thing acts can be at metallics. So I'm hoping that if it's different, it's not going to be so, it's going to be different like it should be, not different distractingly. I don't know if I should start with the little guy, but I figured if I do the big guy. I don't think I painted him on stream. I think, well, now I can't remember. If any of you remember, if any of you want to demonstrate having way better memories than I do, which is kind of not a challenge, let me know if you remember me painting that guy on stream. Because I know that I worked on, there's a lady ogre too, and I worked on her at ReaperCon. I was sitting at my desk and kind of showing people how the superwashes worked and stuff. And now I feel like I did work on him on stream, but who knows? One of you knows, but you're not telling. That's not true. I'm sure that well, we have some stalwart regulars. I'm sure that lots of people are tuning in and out and didn't even know about Reaper last year in August or whenever I was working on these superwash things. And it's already time to start preparing for ReaperCon. This year, time is just flying. So I'll have that guy. But I will probably also try to work on these, especially this. One of them, I guess I can figure some. I mean, I'm definitely doing steel, but it'd be nice to mix in some copper or something else just to have it, show different things. Queenie says, it's Monday. I barely remember my own name. Yeah, it's a pretty Monday from my point of view. But I like to kind of experiment. So instead of having done any testing in advance, I thought I would. I also like to fail on screen and then see if I can fix it or just learn from my mistakes. Because I think a lot of people get this impression that, professional painters, skilled painters, whatever you want to call it, I don't know, just know how to do stuff. Chris said bare minimum Mondays. Yeah, I've been living a bare minimum lifestyle on a lot of days lately. But yes, what was I mumbling about? That failure and experimentation and not just knowing. Because, one of the common questions I'll see, like, on Facebook, or I imagine Discord if I wasn't so old and I ever went there. And the forums back, what the old people did use, will be stuff like, I have this. I have Dragon Red. What color should I shade it with? I mean, that's a valid question to ask, but you're actually going to get more out of figuring out, how do I figure out what to shade this with, instead of asking an expert, instead of assuming that there are people who just know color and other people who are not good at color. And that's just how it is. Like, either you're good at color and you can see these kinds of things, or you are not. And how you get better at color and all that kind of stuff is by, you grab that red and you grab some stuff you think might work to shade it, and you try it on paper or whatever. So speaking of colors and stuff, I was thinking, why not also look at color theory? So there's a lot of warm colors on here. It's got the warm reddish brown and the yellowish greeny brown and then the browny brown. So I figure using a cool color on the metallics would be a way to go. So I thought about blue liner. I don't know if it's like too dull. We're gonna look at a few options. I'm just going to use my paints out of the Learn to Paint kits and supplements. 2 of them. That's not what they call them. Expansions. There are expansion sets for each of the Learn to Paint kits. I feel like the light has gotten a lot darker since I set up. But then, is that going to blow out? No. I tested everything before I started the stream. And then it's like, why does the light look like crap now? Who knows? All right, so this is one of the blues, I believe, from the expansion, from an expansion set, which is Void Blue. You may not focus on the void. The void is unknowable. And now you may not focus on the paper because the void is still unknowable. Hello. You can do it. So this is actually a somewhat intense blue color, even though it's dark. That's why I got out this piece of paper and did this, because you can't always tell when you just have a drop of paint. So that's, like, I'm trying to find a shadow color. I feel like that's a little much because I painted the rest of him so, you know, dingy and dull. I don't want to come in with like this blue. So let's see what Storm Chaser's got going on, which I believe is also from an expansion set. And this looks like it's more of what I'm after. I mean, it's still a little of a deeper, or, you know, more intense blue than I might have imagined from the, you know, looking at it plain. And looking at those, especially on screen, they don't look wildly different. I mean, this one is darker than this one, I think. And then just for comparison, let's look at our old buddy, Blue Liner. My fave. And I may start with the blue liner and that's, I mean, there's blue, but next to those two, it kind of doesn't look like there's blue. Like, it looks like that's black to me. Like, not just on screen. In person, it looks to me like it's black, but let's just grab black. Because this is that thing about color being relative. And why there isn't always a right answer to what color should I shade that red with. Because it's like, well, it depends on what else is happening on your figure, doesn't it? And this black is intense, so it takes a lot to thin it down. And now you can see that there is indeed blue in Blue Liner. But I feel like that's duller than I thought. So I don't want to do the Blue Liner. I think I want to go with the Storm Chaser blue. I might do half and half just to do the initial base coat. Metallic colors tend to look better over a dark coat of paint. And I'm actually not going to use a wet palette. I'm using this, which is a little strip that goes onto the Redgrass palette, which is the palette I usually use on stream, although I like the Exemplar palette very much. And because it's a dry palette, I'm just going to go ahead and put some more paint in there. But the reason I got this out, and I do have my other palette off to the side in case something comes up where we need to use regular palette. But if you recall, while I was painting the overladen Marina hench person, I find that metallics go funky on a wet palette. And since I was going to be working mostly with metallics and I wanted them to go over a period of time, like to last over a period of time, I thought, well, wouldn't it be more logical to start with, you know, to use a palette that they're not, I mean, they're going to dry out, I guess, but they're not going to go goopy, one hopes. And I'm now realizing that this, okay, and with the, until we get that white covered up, we're going to have to dial the light down a little. This is like a shield that a knight would have been carrying and probably should have, you know, heraldry and crap on it, or at least be different colors, quartered in different colors. I'm just going to cover it for now because of that whole holy crap is that white deal. But I probably won't just paint that straight metallic now that I realize that's what's happening there. Which I guess means I'll probably end up painting it white if I want it to match the other things, but I guess we'll find out. This also gives me an opportunity to kind of fill in void areas like here, excuse me, where I might not have gotten paint, and I should have, because that is kind of the downside of the overcoat system, or one coat, or whatever we want to call it, is it's not necessarily going to get your recesses as dark as you want them to be. I do want to play around with the super washes more, but then I kind of feel like, is that a good thing to do on stream when you just can't go buy them right now? So I feel conflicted about that. But I had a lot of fun painting these things. And my husband is kind of wishing that I should grab those figures and brought them over. Maybe I'll remember for next week. But he got a game called Scarface, which is the mob, or organized crime during Prohibition in Chicago. So it's a competitive game, so there's a variety of gangs, one of which, of course, being Al Capone. I think they're all based on historical gangs, but then, like, one of them they kind of transported down from New York. I think partly to get a woman and then to get a gang that had more people of color in it. But the figures are pretty nice for it, and it's got these like adorable little trucks and cars, period. Trucks and cars that are not in scale to the people, but are still very cool. And they had in the Kickstarter a thing where you could get an extra set of the figures, so he did that, and he would love it if I painted some of them. Now the extra set isn't all the, it's like one, it's all the leaders, and then I think one each of the different goon sculpts. And then Elliot Ness, who actually isn't like in the game, he just marks that countdown. Well, I guess it's a crime track. It's how much people are noticing your criminal activities, I think. So you gotta literally stay at least one step ahead of Elliot Ness. I haven't played the game, but he's been having a ton of fun with it. I like board games. I don't know that one is my kind of board game. But I enjoy that he gets so excited about things. Especially since I don't get excited about things. It's nice to live with someone who has the joie de vivre. So I thought it would be fun to work on those using the super washes, and then I also got I haven't tried them out yet because they just arrived, and also I'm very lazy. The Viejo Express. So the reason I picked those out of the other one coat options is these are also matte. So like the super washes, they are matte, and I have discovered over the years that I strenuously prefer working with matte colors, and I'm often too lazy to go back and seal. But so I like working with them in the sense that I can see my values more reliably. I can see whether I have put enough shadows or light on something when it's matte, and I have more difficulty seeing that when it's not matte. But I'm also like a lazy person who doesn't hardly ever seal things, because that's like a whole other step that you got to take, and that's just exhausting. It would appear that I'm confessing to all of my laziness and apathy today, because I have plenty of laziness and apathy today. Oh, we got some, these are probably supposed to be metal plates too. I decided I don't care. I do what I want. I'm a cat. My cats certainly do what they want. It's like both of them lost their tiny minds yesterday. I do not know what was going on, but Ella was like, "There's not enough love. Love me all day long. No, you are not allowed to do anything else." And I'm not entirely... Corbin was very excited about outside, but then sometimes when my husband's actually taken him outside, we have new neighbors. And I actually feel like the new neighbor's dog is less aggressive than the old neighbor's dogs barked a lot. They didn't seem like they wanted to chew you or anything, but they barked a lot, and there were 3 of them, so they would get each other excited. But somehow this new one dog that's less barky, and admittedly, he's not like a lot larger. He's a German Shepherd, but does my cat know dog breeds? I really don't think so. He just kind of has a general dog bad philosophy. He doesn't care if it's a Chihuahua or a Great Dane. He is not there for it. There are some deep metal details. This door that he's using as a shield. Because I guess if you're a giant ogre, you can't exactly go to the shield store. I mean, first of all, everybody would run screaming. But secondly, they wouldn't really have a lot of stuff in your size. So anyway, Corbin kept wanting to go out, but then the guy would be out, or the dog would be out, and then he'd come back in. And he was driving him crazy with his shenanigans. So happily, they have been much calmer today. Probably because they wore themselves out yesterday, being crazy cats. Oops, I'm a little too far over to the right. Now that I'm thinking about it, this could be a fun place to put the bronze and stuff, couldn't it? Maybe we'll do that, and I should stop painting this blue on it. Do I care about tiny buckles right now? Yeah, sure, why not? Obviously, I'd never painted the leather on here for some reason. Possibly I was kind of like, what color? Choices, and gave up on that. But he has a chainmail coif, is that what? Coif? So that's definitely got to get some metallics. Is it coif like the hair? I do not know. I guess I should like keep trying to go to the Ren Fair or something and see if I'll eventually learn these things. I have not been to the Ren Fair since moving to Tennessee. They sometimes have it when I think it's a little hot here and I don't really want all the mosquito fun and whatnot. We do some kind of pirate day thing too or pirate weekend that I should probably also go to and have not. I do not know why it has all these kind of metal sheets hanging off. I mean, I guess it's probably for protection. I guess could be like a fashion statement as well. Who am I to dictate ogre fashion? Somehow doubt the inside of that would be metal, but now what the inside of that will be is a dark thing that we don't waste our time looking at. Valander is struggling with sinus problems. Yeah, I believe that if you live anywhere remotely warm, the pollinating is upon us already. I was kind of shocked when we drove around a few days ago and then like maybe a week ago, and then 3 or 4 days later we went out and I'm like, hold on, now all of the trees are flowering. It's not just the Bradford pears. We had a big storm. Bradford pears came down. Shocking. They are terrible trees to plant if you want your trees to stay upright. They grow fast, and some people think that they are pretty. Some people do not, and we don't have any close enough that I have to deal with the smell, but I understand there's kind of a whole smell situation with them too. But I have noticed that they come down in the rain. They have shallow root systems and they grow pretty fast. So they're non-optimal trees for stormy weather, I think. They had them at my husband's old office in the parking lot, and one of them came down on somebody's car that they just chopped the ball down. They grow wild here too. It's not like they're all cultivated. They've wandered off on their own, but those are definitely already going. But I swear I saw red buds, which just seems like I thought those bloomed a lot later than some of the, after we get the dogwoods and the flowers I don't know the names of. I do like driving around looking at all the trees though, but my sinuses are a little less impressed with. Well, my sinuses aren't too bad yet, but I wake up every morning and there's gunk to cough up, which is definitely an allergy or beginning to happen situation. So hopefully I'm not going to start coughing on the show again. And I say that partly because I can't have my cough syrup anymore. So that will be fun. If that happens, I will have to choose between hanging out with you guys and being stoned and nauseous or coughing up alone. Awesome choices, both. Because I am a giant weirdo who cannot get their brush where it needs to be. So you're not going to be able to see that because there's like a crevice under the shield that I'm trying to reach. And then some other stuff that I'm just going to paint dark while I'm here because if I can't reach it, hopefully you can't see it. That's how I like to think about that most of the time. But anyway, yes, codeine cough syrup has been canceled. And the dextromorphin over-the-counter stuff and I do not get along that well. So I have to really want to not cough to take that stuff. I tested it again recently because people always are like, well, that doesn't seem right. It's got to be the other way around. I'm like, so a few shows ago, I took that stuff and I was like, nope, I don't want to do that. Because then after the show, I was just like, well, I guess I just get to sit here and stare blankly into space until my brain comes back. So apparently I don't need my brain for this show. So, Bender achieved a milestone. He watched 3 consecutive streams this month and sparked a watch streak. This seems like something new. Casmania, you should do a stream with the super watches. People can always sub them with, insert your own one coat paint here. Valender says it's not pollen, it's the oncoming barometric pressure. It's a high of 80 today, but 50 tomorrow. Well, surely that's enough that the trees have started blooming, because that's the kind of thing we got a few weeks ago. We had a few days in the 70s, if not higher. And it would still get kind of cold at night. But we had enough warm weather that the trees were all like, all right, it's happening. And I still am kind of expecting snow. I mean, I'm sort of thinking, okay, maybe it's not going to happen. But it certainly has happened before that we've had this kind of false spring. And the trees are like, nope, it's happening. And they start going. And then it freezes again and kills all the flowers and buds and stuff. And makes me sad. So I was expecting the trail this year. But it continues to be not as warm. I have the air conditioner on warm, which it certainly was a few times. I've had to run it in the car more because of the whole greenhouse deal. Quindy, it's one of Twitch's latest experiments with the milestones and what happens as we achieve milestones. I realize now that he has some parts that were not metallics that I haven't finished, like the back of these leg armor thing, what's holding the armor plates on that I have not addressed. So maybe we will be seeing some super washes by and by. And here's where my hook brush comes in handy because it kind of hooks around the edge of that plate so I can paint it without having to contort myself too much. And if I contort myself slightly, it will do the same thing. Get kind of under there without messing up his foot. What I am messing up is I have no place to rest my finger, which is part of how I paint more steadily, is bracing my hand on things. This would be a figure to use the Game Envy painting handle with, I guess, if he's not too tall for it. I'm gonna ignore those rivets for now, since I haven't painted the leather yet. Oh, let's see if Hooky can get way down in there. Yeah, it did. That's definitely not a place we want people going, oh, why is it so light in there? Let me look there, even though that's his inside of the plate and very boring information. This part maybe I could have used the wet palette for, because I've actually ended up using a lot more paint than I expected this would take before we can get to the metallic part. But that's okay. I waste paint so you guys don't have to know. Well, I mean, I do like to, if there are questions I can answer by using a bunch of paint for you all, I do not mind doing that. Okay, well, I can barely even see where I'm trying to. It's not a hook brush problem, this is a vision problem. Yes, the bottom of this. I'm gonna assume that it'll be metal on the side also. Well, I haven't done his weapon, but based on how I have been rubbing a bunch of paint off as I went, I feel like doing it right now would be a bad plan. I'm just going to hit a few places where my coverage was a little streaky. Well, I suspect this next stage will take care of that, and we'll let him dry a little while I work out the next stage. I do think the cooler color is going to be nice. It's going to pop those lighter colors. How zoomed in am I? Maybe I'm too zoomed. Come out a little, because he's a big guy. Tells everyone that Valender's on fire. That's it. It tells chat. Okay. Well, now we know that Valender is on fire. So I'd used up all my paint, just about, so I'm going to mix some more. So I had a bit of blue liner. I think I'm going to mix in a larger amount of the Storm Chaser blue this time, since we've got that, you know, super dark coat on there. And one of those paints seems like they're a little thick, and it's not just that I'm using this kind of palette instead of wet palette. But now we get the metallic, and I will be beginning with Blade Steel, because that is the kind of regular steel color that is in the paint kits. And for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to put a whole bunch over here. And hope I'm right that it's not going to go goopy on this palette. And then it's just going to be a process of, you know, I put some in here. And that some may have already been too much. I got overexcited. Let's, maybe not, but put a little more of that back in. And a little more water. So for those who came a bit later, which I think Valender may have been one of the people who came a bit later, I'm working on a method of doing shaded metallics. Rather than painting the metal first and then adding the shading, I'm going to be painting up from the darkest color. But the darkest color is a matte paint, And I'll be adding progressively more metallic paint as I go to kind of create that same effect where there's less reflective particle in the shadow areas and more reflective particle in brighter areas. And let's start somewhere a little less conspicuous, just in case I've gotten something badly wrong. Because I have not really done this technique in like a million years. It may need just a little more water, but I'm going to see if I can live without it. Because the point in this particular case is to try to be a little quicker. So I'm just going to try to feather an edge where I want it to really just be dark, dark. It might be fun to have made up multiple mixes instead of just mixing in as I go up to the next step. The other advantage of doing it like this, and this is how I used to do blending like regular paints when I first started, is I'd have my pool of, my middle color, and then I'd progressively add in a little bit more of my highlight color, do a layer, add a little more, do a layer. And you can get a really nice smooth blend, and that's easy to work with. But when you forget spots, you're kind of hosed because that, all of the colors are gone. Where if you mix up your various layer colors the way I normally do on the palette, I believe Anne does something pretty similar, just with a slightly different approach to dilution and the number of layer steps, then you can go back and forth a lot easily. But this method is probably, from a tabletop speed point of view, also advantageous. But it does mean I can't. What the heck is that? I don't know what's on there. Probably something I was supposed to like cut off, but maybe not. Let's figure it out later. Situation. So there I didn't completely cover, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay as I put this next layer on. So that's why I didn't go nuts trying to get an opaque layer. I am trying to decide if the blue is like too blue, but we'll see. I mean, there will start being more and more silver and, whatever the gray pigments are in the metallic to dull that down. Now I have the problem where I see a spot that should be white that I would like to have be dark, and I don't have my dark color anymore because I put that metallic in it. Wow, even Hookie's not going to help me here, I don't think. All right, let's see what kind of contortions I can do. That's one of the other challenges of doing the one coat thing is, if you were here while I was painting the marina, the overladen, one of the steps I did like at the beginning was kind of look for places where I'm not going to be able to reach and it should be really dark and recessed. And I added that dark color first. And that is probably going to look weird if you do it on something that you're starting with a white paint and then, going, adding the one coat color over it, which is probably part of what appeals in the slap chop zenithal approach, because you do at least have, that dark color is established. The reason I don't like it, and I didn't bring over kind of my comparison figures, I still have to do the zenithal one, because I might like it with zenithal better. I need to try that. But it dulls everything down, which, depending on, if you're painting a character like this, maybe you're okay with that. But I kind of like the option of having lighter, more brilliant colors, and then I can shade down stuff that I don't want to be lighter or more brilliant in the watercolor way. which granted is, watercolor is a frustrating medium because if you screw up, you can't. Too bad, it's there. Like you've gone over something that should have been lighter, and this one coat coverage painted the way it's intended is kind of a similar thing. Ballender, I never understood people who insisted on gloss shadows washes on metallics. It makes no sense to me. I do feel like it makes a lot more sense to make the shadows matte and non-reflective, so that it like emphasizes the parts that are metallic and really makes them sparkle more, I think, as well as giving you some shape and dimension to, you're bringing out the forms, as the art people would say, in the same way that you're doing on the matte sections. Gloss stuff does look darker. I don't know if that's maybe part of the appeal for people. So that's why a matte black never really looks as black as you want it to. Because when stuff is wet or glossy, it looks a little darker. Just kind of trying to side brush this a little. I'm not going to get into a lot of details with this chainmail texture stuff. Because when I actually learned this technique, the person used inks, which there's an interesting element to that, and it may react better with the metallics, I don't know. But you can kind of play with color between the color of your ink, the color of them, and the color of the metallic. You kind of have two ways to have fun with, like you can do kind of a color shifting sort of thing. I think I did a purple ink and bluish metallic on the one, kind of when I came home and I wanted to goof around with it. And that did do some pretty colors. Wait, like I feel like I showed a guy. I had an Unforgiven figure and I feel like I showed him when I was going through my, keep it, toss it, experiment with it, with my half-finished things. All right, so we'll leave that where it is for now and gloop in another swack of metallic, which, see, it's, to me, this is staying more similar to the way it comes out of the bottle than if I did this on my wet palette, which is why I don't have my wet palette right now. And how many, this is like regular layering. If you want it to be super smooth and pretty, you can do more steps and take more time because you're going to be applying more coats. Or you can jump up a little faster. And since these are kind of more tabletop guys, I'm going to start jumping up a little faster. But also mixing in just a smidge of water to hopefully make those transition points not totally glaring. I mean, possibly we will find out that I should have. I'm going to start on the back because I don't know if I got this right or not. Because like I said, I haven't done this in a long time, and I decided to just be honest and experiment on camera. So that's taking the blue down a bit too. So it's not as, crazy blue. I want like blued steel, but not like magically blue. Hopefully in the end. And because I set out to paint metallics for the whole show, I did do so this is my special metallics cup. Here, we'll go here and see if I can get it on the camera. I even wrote on it that it is for metals. Also, it has a little lid, so sometimes if it's not too gunked up, I just keep water in there, so if I need to kind of like emergency switch. And then I have a sponge that I have delegated specifically for metallics so that I don't get flake where I don't want flake. if I'm just doing a small thing. I mean, I don't necessarily, it's not like some metallics are going to contaminate my regular rinse cup, but if I'm working between the two at the same time in particular, it's nice to have rinse water that I know isn't shiny. Yep. Okay. Is this one? And I'm not even going to stress too much about these like little things right now, because they don't really need to go up as many steps. Even this I probably could have. Yes, sad cat? Are you going to come say hi to everybody? Maybe she is. What's up? You're not even in the room. How am I supposed to pick you up? Ella's being a little logic challenged lately. Well, okay, lately. Ella has always been, like, even cat logic kind of is tough for her. Oh, are you in the room now? Just trying to kind of decide where I want the shininess. Oh, did I get this one on his head? Which is nicely placed. That contrast between the matte and the shiny will help draw attention up to his face. Oh, I did not do these little... I almost fixed my brush on his base, which would have been bad because I already painted the base. I had a lot of fun doing that stone with the super washes and kind of, layering different colors over one another and letting them pool a little bit to try to create the stoniness looking of it. All right, so I probably should have started with that one and then gone up from there, but like I said, haven't done this for a minute. So let's whack in some more metallics. That's interesting. I feel like the camera isn't straight down, maybe? I don't know. I did use a little more paint than I needed to. I was being cautious because I'm concerned about it drying out while I'm on stream, because that seems like a thing that would happen, as paint has done that to me before on stream. I almost brought over my ceramic palette, like the one that Anne uses, but I was concerned that the little wells might be a bit too small and things would dry up, but I think it would have been fine, even for this beefy ogre guy. But hopefully these are things that I will make a note of for next time. Let's zoom in just a little so you can see maybe whether it's starting to build up nicely. I guess metallics can be tricky with this camera too, but I feel like it works with a video camera a lot better because you can move things around and kind of see different angles, which is tough to do when taking photographs. And I have a new camera, so I'm kind of having to learn everything again. And even though it's a, updated version of my current camera, there are still enough differences that I'm going to have to play around a bit with, how far away I put the camera when I'm taking the photographs, and might even need to play with the light a little. No, I haven't really been doing these ones off on the side. Because even when it's like the same company and kind of the same optics and whatnot, I mean, it's been a few years and they constantly change the software on the cameras. And this is, I think this one is a full frame, and my previous was a, I don't know what they call it, APC or something like that. So the sensor was was bigger than like a standard point and shoot sensor, but I have a rolling cart thing that I use to set up all my stuff to the side when I do the show, and apparently Ella found this very tricky to get around. Not that there aren't like 4 different ways she could have gone around it completely and not had to deal with it, but like I said, she's not necessarily even great at cat logic. I can't remember which of these I've done with this layer already. Not these. I think I even missed them in the previous one. And I missed the chainmail. So I don't know if this is the answer for the, one coat, how to do, where do I put my finger so I can brace? How to do metallics on a one coat, because it's probably taking a little longer than one would like for a fairly quick tabletop miniature. It'd be worth doing on like captains, or if you're only doing like a warband or something, but definitely don't think everyone would like this as the answer for all the metallics. But then, I mean, I was talking about how I like painting sort of the watercolor way, where you work down to the shadows, and that's going to take a little longer than like a straight up slap chop or whatever too. So my bar for how long I'm willing to spend on a tabletop thing may be slightly different than someone else's who has to paint like a full-on army. Because even that board game I was talking about, if I painted all of the guys, there are a lot of guys. But if I just paint the one that was in the extra paint set, it's not like a crazy amount of guys. All right, I feel like it's time to go just to the straight metallic. Like value-wise, those are not wildly different. but we probably need a little bit of water in there. Or I could be using medium. I probably should be, because it'll keep the flake in suspension better. But I'm not trying to make it like super watery. Just make it flow a little more, and hopefully be a little, help make the edge feather out a little more. But I'm going to start in the back again in case I'm wrong. Yeah, I think I like that effect. And having done this once now, I can see some ways that I could make it faster on future guys. It had been several years, many years, since I experimented with this technique. So I can't expect to just come out of the gate with it knowing exactly what I'm doing. I can take one guy and see, okay, can I make this work for, tabletop purposes and speeds? And I probably can to my satisfaction. Whether I can to the most efficient tabletop satisfaction is a different question. But I could have cut down the steps a little bit, I think, and got a similar effect. And you can kind of see some of the transitions down there on this one. And I can decide whether or not I care about that. Come back with the previous layer, since I still had that one. Use the old stipple effect. Wait. Nope, I got those. Let's get them again just to be sure. Wants to have nice shiny rivets. Here I just kind of want to bounce around a little and pick up some of that texture, but not every little spot. I am, as much as possible, trying to pull the lighter paint, the paint with more metallic, towards where I want it to be lighter, in hopes of having those transition areas look a little better, because I'm breaking up the edge, and it's where you pull your brush off of the figure is where you leave the biggest drop of paint. So when you put it down, you have the most control over the amount of paint. And as you lift up, just due to fluid dynamics, a little more paint comes off the brush as you're pulling it away from the surface. It seems counterintuitive, to me at least, but that is how it works. I probably should have got up on that edge in the first place, and I did not. Since he is a rough and tumble type of character, I can also look into some weathering type effects, give him some scratches, and I think I might want to go in with a little bit brown paint here and there, browny, rusty type paint. Because as much as, I mean, he's kind of a badass and everything, he probably doesn't take super good care of his stuff, and even if he has minions, they probably don't take super good care of his stuff. But I think we're going to go one more step. We're going to go to the, let's see, I've got filigree silver and then polished silver compared to my original blade steel. I feel like we'll go with the filigree. That doesn't seem as goopy. I think I need to add some water to my blade steel bottle. If I were being fussy, or this was for, you know, because there's no reason you couldn't do this technique on a display miniature, just with a little more time and attention. I would switch over to a different brush probably if I were doing that. Maybe I should have this a bit thicker actually. Do the pops, that hotspot type reflection. And then if I were doing this on something that I was trying to paint for a contest or a gift or something, I would do this step, and then I would also go with that, what was it, polished silver, to really try to get that kind of reflective hotspot look. Because that is a big part of what makes metal look metallic to us. Like, make us think something is metal and shiny are those areas where it's like super reflective. Just like how you usually go up to white or pretty close to it on non-metallic metal. So I'm trying to catch edges and stuff, since those are areas where that happens a lot. Around these little holes where the cord attaches the plate to its armor. Tops of rivets. These edges, and even the edge where it was the dark side, the edge is actually facing up, so it's reasonable that that would be more reflective. Likewise with these little rivets, the edges are facing up. And this is probably a good exercise if you're someone who hasn't painted non-metallic metal, you're thinking about it, you're a little nervous about it. You can do all the same kind of work of figuring out where should things be lighter, where should things be darker, with this kind of approach to painting metallics. Because I mean, it would all be the same logic of like, okay, where am I putting these lighter colors? Where am I putting these darker colors? You're working out the same kind of problem, but in a medium that you're already familiar with, and that is maybe a little more forgiving if you don't 100% get it right, because the metallic flake itself is still going to sparkle. Or consider it a way to practice, the principles for where you would paint shadows and highlights on non-metallic metal, even while you're painting tabletop figures that you want to go a little quicker, or use metallics because you like how they look on the table. This is still giving you all the great practice of thinking about where things are lighter and darker. And like here, I was trying to pick one of these faces to be getting more light against this edge, and one of them to be darker against this edge, because that bumps up the shine idea a lot. If anything, I maybe took away too much. I didn't leave enough shadow along that edge because I was a little haphazard about working that out as I went. But there's not necessarily this huge divide between metallics and non-metallics, or tabletop and display. Like, there are a lot of things that apply to both, or translate between both in one way or another. And that is how some of the painters I know that are really good painters, they work out a lot of this stuff on, armies and tabletop figures that they're painting for clients. They do some experimentation and figure things out. And then take what they've learned and really dive in when they're painting a contest entry or something else where they have a bit more time. So I think those main parts are done. I feel like the light's a little overexposed, so I'm going to take it down a bit to do a bit of a turnaround. So this one has some kind of, this is like a blob that I do not now know, now that I painted over it, if it's on, I feel like it's definitely on the figure, but whether it's meant to be there or not is something I'm having more trouble figuring out. And I think it is. What I'm going to paint it as, I really have no idea, but I should come up with something, because it looks weird not coming up with something. Let's get these little spots. And then let's see if I can also get the buckles. So I feel like that worked as well as when I did it with inks, which, as Valander says, is like a glossy surface. So would probably not be my preference for doing that. I feel like this worked as well, but I don't know. I don't know if you guys think it looks good or not. Pull him back out so you can kind of see it in the context of the whole guy. If it looks kind of glaring to have stuff that's really opaquely painted along with stuff that's transparently painted, I don't know. But let us press on, and I will do the door stuff. Like, what do I have, copper or bronze? let's find out. Let's find out what I have here. I have Dragon Bronze, which is a pretty cool color. Well, it's a warm color, but it's a cool color. And then Dragon Gold, which would just be for highlights in this case. I wouldn't even mind if I had a darker bronze. If I had more bronze, I don't know. There's a bronze in the main line. This is one of the Bones paints. So there's a darker bronze in the main line that I feel like would go better. Is it worth me briefly pausing to go get that? Oh, I'm sorry that you got... The sinuses are taunting you that much. I hope you feel better soon. Hopefully the barometric pressure will change. I'm going to do the base coat painting on that and let it dry. And then I'll go get a darker bronze type stuff. So I don't want to use that blue. I want to use something warmer. I think this should be good. If I want a straight out of the box paint, I think that's a pretty good one. I could make it even darker. I don't have walnut brown. I don't think. Do I? That's funny because I would have said I... No, I guess I did use this one. For a minute I thought I had used walnut brown in one of the Lorena paint kits, but nope, it is Ebony Flush that I used as the darkest color on that set. So I could mix this with a little bit of black if I wanted. Maybe I will just for this initial step. As we're doing a little bit of that in the crevices. Hiding the crevices. That kind of sounds rude. Are you allowed to say that on Twitch? Are you allowed to talk about hiding your crevices on Twitch? Or that's right, I can talk about whatever I want. I just can't show you any crevices. So don't look at this poor guy's crevices. I hardly ever paint anything this big, I'm now realizing. Every once in a while. It's probably nice for on stream because you can like maybe actually see what I'm doing. But I don't know. I don't know how much the usual video quality might trouble you or not. It is my hope that this new camera will also work for making videos, but as far away as I am from figuring out how to make it take great still photos, which is something I've had years of practice at, I'm much further away from figuring out how to make it take videos. And I lack equipment, like how do I suspend the camera? Well, I don't like the way that the paint is filling that hole in, but we will fix it in a minute. Yeah, that is going great for me. Because you could conceivably kind of fill in the space. Or make like a little paint film over a section. It probably would pop and settle as it's drying because this is I believe there are things that help the paint level and pop bubbles. I forget what they're called at this time. Since I think acrylic paint is prone to bubbles, so they put stuff in it. This is what it sounded like when I was... All right. I don't think you can see what I'm doing at all. It goes back there, but I have to turn it towards me a little more too. Attempt to fill it in. You see it a bit better from the side. You all seem very quiet today. You were pretty quiet last week too. Have I just become this boring? I need to do another episode about hyenas or something more provocative. More conversation inspiring. I was going to say I need to get a puppy, but we've previously discussed how lazy I am, and I am far too lazy to have a puppy. Every time I think about getting another cat, the cats spend some time convincing me that is a terrible plan. Even though part of the reason I want another cat is for Corbin. I want to get my cat a cat. You know, like you do. He was chasing after Ella again yesterday because he gets bored and he wants to play. And Ella would like him to go away and not talk to her. So that never turns out for him. I don't know why he keeps trying it. He really wants to hunt right now, I think. It's like when it's spring and the weather turns nicer, it like reignites his passion for hunting. And there is nothing to hunt in the house. Not that he's been like lighting it up outside. He cut something a couple weeks ago, but he just sits a lot when he goes outside. And sometimes when he's sitting, he's kind of watching for things he could attack. But sometimes he's just being lazy. And he seemed a little on the lazy side lately. Oh, well, maybe we want to get that big blob of white right there. That doesn't look good. Is there something else that I should paint? Material. Would it make sense for the weapon to be not steel? No, I think the weapon needs to be steel. So I don't love only having this in one area. For color purposes, it's nice to have things spread out a little on the miniature. But it is what it is. I probably should have made some of these plates copper as well. So I'm just going to leave him in view. Here, we'll put him like this. And then I'll be back in just a minute with the copper. If somebody pops on the channel, assure them that there is someone here streaming. Grabbing some options. I think I'm misremembering colors that exist. Oh, no, here's the darker one. The downside of my paint being way over there. Way over there. All right, let's see what I came back with. So I've got bright bronze, which I feel is probably bright bronze. And maybe that doesn't exist anymore. But there's ancient bronze. That's the one I was originally thinking of. I do like that bright bronze though. But if it doesn't exist anymore, and I don't know if this is currently available, tungsten plating, so we'll eliminate that as well. I also don't know about barrowgate copper, which I like. I do like that color. I don't know if it fits the rest of the colors on the figure. I feel like it doesn't. So we're going to go with ancient bronze. Then I can do this one as a highlight color for it, the dragon bronze. Oh, bright bronze is Pathfinder, so that does exist. No, I think I do want to go with this less eye-catching one because, like, this is the door. The door is, like, cool, and it does convey some of the information about this character, but it's a bit far away from both the action and his face, so I don't want the door to be too in your, too eye-catching, which I feel like that very pretty Pathfinder bronze would be. So I'm not going to use that one. There's my pool of paint, because I'm going to do the same thing. But I am going to very briefly turn the sound off, so you're being abandoned again. Here, we'll put a sideways ogre in now for that. Although I'm sure I have my little hairdryer. There we go. We have my hairdryer story here. Because I shook up all the paints before the show, but I didn't know I was going to use this color, so I didn't shake this one. So hold on just a sec. All right, I wanted to give that a good shake because it is a metallic. And they get goopy. The flake is heavier than paint pigments in the binder, so it definitely sinks. I mean, it can sink even on the palette. That's why I was talking about using medium as a thinner before. Oh, it's pretty nice consistency. So it hasn't been thickening up in the container when I wasn't looking. We can zoom in a little on that even. Wow, that brown is a powerful brown. So I'm going to go straight to the source. And even then, I'm glad I didn't refill the little section the way I did with the blue. That is still surprisingly dark. But I'm going to leave it there for now because we're also adding shine, so I don't want to jump too far ahead. I feel like I may want my smaller brush at this point, since most of this is... Sorry, there was a weird noise that didn't seem like it could be cat related. So I'm going to assume that this noise is on the outside. Maybe I turned the light down too much before. So it is shiny. It's not crazy shiny, but it's shiny. But I don't know. Is it too dark? If I had like larger plates and stuff, I think that I would be okay with that, working up the way I did with the other plates. But for here, I don't feel like it's feel like it's the way to go. So I'm going to do something I occasionally do. Because I don't, do I just want to keep adding bronze forever? Not really. So I'm going to take out some of the too dark color. And this is like, you know, we've talked about tinning strength before. Just clearly that these browns I've chosen have a pretty powerful tinning strength. I think my bronze is goopy. Maybe I should look in the nozzle just to be sure. That's a bit better. Yes, that seems a little more effective. For large surfaces and persnicketiness, I would probably have started with that other color. But for this function, especially since most of these areas on this door are like trim size where you need fewer transitions, then something like a nice flat sword. Not going to go too nuts on these places where we can't really see anyway. So. I don't mind if it looks a little patchy because this is probably not beautifully well maintained metal. And that's where, if I had started with the previous coat, the patchiness would be less apparent. It kind of meld together a little more than this might. Did I? I didn't do the bars on this side, did I? Remind myself to think about which way is up, which, you know, this is the most upward facing angle. So it's not, if I think about it like a door and I treat it like that, it's not going to match the pose of the character. I think that's sometimes how we talk ourselves out of contrast, because we have to hold things at different positions to reach stuff. and then stuff will look like odd and awkward and glaring when you're looking at it at the wrong angle. That might look fine if you're looking at it from the intended angle of where you're painting the light as a whole. And then you'll dial yourself back when you really shouldn't. At least I certainly know that I have done this. And I have to suspect that it is a problem for other people. Hold on, there's like a little hair on the end of my brush. This will sometimes happen. I think you can even see it, even though the camera is. We'll get a little clump. That'll just happen sometimes, especially with metallics. But it happens with regular paint too. If I were being very persnickety, I would come back over all of these rivets with a very dark color before painting the top of them to make sure that they really stand out, and also because there would be more, it's really hard to get the grime and dust and everything out from the edges of something like that that's connected to another material. At least I find it that way when I'm cleaning things around the house. So you get a dark little ring around it for a variety of reasons, and then it looks cool and helps things stand out more if you paint it that way. But that would be taking a lot of time for what is supposed to not be a super time consuming miniature. A little bit of time. He's a cool guy. I want him to look cool. But not like an insane amount of time. So I'm going to jump straight to that bronze now. So there's the two colors I had. Make sure it's still nice and flowy, which it is. I'll probably leave it here. I mean, we could do the highlight, that little edge highlight type thing with the whatever it was, gold that I had, dragon gold. But I'll have to ask myself if it is worth the extra time. I am not sure in the end that the copper was a great choice for the door, because just the door is so brown, and it's just like brown on brown. But then if I'm thinking about the idea of not wanting the door to steal too much attention, maybe it's good that way. That's one of those things that I would need to take the time to hold the figure away from me. Maybe, take a break and go walk around for a minute and then come back and look at it again. And other things that I can't really do while streaming, or it gets super boring for you all. But I will pause to reflect for a moment after I finish this section and see if I think it's worth another minute to just pop things a bit. I suspect that I may actually think it's worth it. guess we can zoom out for you guys too. So it's definitely, the door is not standing out. But is it not standing out too much, as it were? Kurt, should have gone with black iron. Yes, I probably should have. I think you are correct. I mean, I suppose I could paint over it again, but it is little detail bits that I will be starting to gunk in. So I don't know that that's what I want to do. But let's try the, what did I call it? Dragon gold. And I suppose it would also have been more logical if it was black iron. I don't know, it seemed like bronze was a cheaper metal that maybe you would have used on a door. It would be reasonable to say that I'm no door expert, though. Medieval or otherwise. But yeah, it would have helped out with that warm cool contrast. That's the reason I went with the blue on the steel. But I thought it would be nice to show a yellow metal as well. Probably should have done on the pirate. We dragons love the gold. Yep. So shiny. We need more gold. Although I do subscribe to the philosophy that many things can be a dragon hoard. You can have a dragon hoard of awesome dice, dragon hoard of books. Whatever your preciouses are, can be your very own dragon hoard. I do like that effect. I don't know if it's showing up as much on screen, but it definitely gives it a little more life in the hand. I mean, black iron still would have been the correct choice, but it helps. Let's get some on the bars, actually. Just a little bit. If I were doing a very bright yellow metal, like actual gold, which is definitely the wrong metal for a door, even I know that, you can add one of those really bright silvers at the end to punch it up a little. Like for the hot spots. All right. So he's not done, but he's definitely further along. I don't think I feel like the contrast between like the opaquely painted metals and the watercolory one coat paints overcoat, since I don't do one coat, I guess. I don't feel like it's glaring. I think I can live with it. I think it's all right. I think that is a nice method for painting the shaded metallics. I mean, first, if you're used to painting up from darker to lighter, and painting up darker to lighter can be faster, can be easier to reach some things than the shading down method. I don't know that it looks exactly the same, which is fine. I mean, things don't have to look exactly the same. But it gives you a similar kind of control, a similar effect. So I think it's effective. Where are we time-wise? Wow, I didn't even get the whole guy done. Or even close. Where's my silvery one? Or steel? Put the dark on the weapon at least. Let's see where I am. So I don't know if any of you have any kind of questions about that technique or thoughts, or if you've tried something like that you want to share. I guess it might be interesting for me to try it with ink again. Reaper only has 2 inks, so I wasn't sure if that was the way to go if I wanted to play with the color, which I think is part of the appeal of any kind of shaded metallics, is that you get to, customize your shadows, colors to the other colors you're using on the figure. And with this method, you can it's a way of playing with a different kind of colored metallic, and then you can mix it with colored metallics, and you can kind of do like a contrasty thing in the shadows, or there's all kinds of stuff you could do, I figure, with that idea of working up. So black and brown ink just didn't seem interesting enough to me for doing this. I had originally envisioned that I would do this weapon at the same time, and then I started getting paint all over myself, moving the figure around while I was doing this step. So I'm like, that would maybe actually be a terrible plan. So let us not do that. Because look, I'm even doing paint on myself, splitting things up. I could probably even use a mirror brush here. Now this kind of surface seems like something where the metallic and then a wash is probably a lot easier and quicker, because there's so many little crevices and ridges and bolts and everything. But then I think that would start looking weird. Like if I painted this metallic this way, and then I had another section that I painted this way, because he's like metallic with a wash. I think that would start looking weird. So I think I'm just gonna have to suck up, like, doing the weapon's not gonna look as great, or it's gonna take a long time. Sometimes you don't have the right answer for the whole figure. Like, it certainly would have been easier and quicker to have done the weapon at the same time as the other parts. But I would have definitely had to have one of those painting handles that has a support bar. I don't think he'd fit under the Exemplar one, or the Game Envy. Exemplar is their palette. Game Envy makes the holders, and I think he's too tall. But I have a different style that I'm totally blanking on where I got those, from a European company, where they have kind of interchangeable bars you can switch out, and there are different heights for different scales and sizes of miniature. And I do have one that was like the 54mm scale that I think would work as a support, and he would still fit under there. I should have painted the handle already with the super washes, but apparently I did not. And he's got more buckles and whatnots. We might revisit him in another stream. So that's going to dry. I had hoped to get to this guy because I wanted to do a different foundation color for the steel. Because, so he's kind of like a, I was going to say red and green, but that really is more orange. So it's orange and green, which if you go with the triad would then make purple. Purple is a weird color to underpaint, or to have as the shadows of his metallics. But there is more than one kind of purple, just like there was more than one kind of green and orange. So it would be possible, I'm imagining, to make kind of a dull purple that maybe wouldn't look weird and out of place with this particular kind of character. So perhaps I will do that on a future stream. Okay, just experiment with some purples while we're winding down. I had a test paper because I was testing those blues on it. And then what happened? What an excellent question. I'm sure I did something very logical with it. To myself at the time, it seemed very logical. There we go. All right, so let's fool around with the idea of, wrong button. Purple, but not, inappropriate purple for an orc. Actually, start by mixing purple instead of going straight to my purples. So I want a dull purple. I want a warm blue and a warm red. I'm more likely to get a dull purple. And I know that just looks like dark muddiness. So we thin. And that actually is less muddy of a purple than I expected. Probably because it's that void blue, which is that one. So that one plus this red made more of a true purple. So let's get the Storm Chaser blue that is definitely duller and a little warmer. Let's see what happens with that one. And I'm picking fairly dark colors because this would be like the first step. Like I painted that and then the dark brown for the bronze areas. That needs more blue. Probably shouldn't have put the blue right in there because now it might be too much blue. But maybe not. That is a powerful red compared to this blue. So that's another example of tinting strength right there. Like I was having the brown ended up, kind of overpowering the metallic. And this, with this blue and red, like half and half was pretty reasonable to end up with purple, which is what you would expect. But for this one, I needed a lot more blue than I needed of the purple. Still, I think I actually like that one better. But yeah, I think I like that one better. I don't think it's like so purple that he's not gonna look like a badass orc if we did that one. Well, and I was gonna put it on, but then that's not efficient because then I wouldn't have the mix to mix the metallics into. So I guess that I will wait for next time to do that. So there's the finished ogre. Well, not finished. There's the ogre with more finished than before. Yeah, I think the metallics are looking okay. I need to figure out what to paint that shield that he stole from somebody. And finish up some of the superwash parts. He's got that little pouch still. And a few other elements, but he's come along. So hopefully that was interesting. I mean, it is something I haven't done before. I was struggling to figure out what to do today because I know y'all like me to mix it up, and I'm like, I feel like I'm running out of ideas. I haven't really had an idea of stuff to test. I thought about doing, and I think I will still do this at some point, like a limited color scheme miniature. So not like the monochrome, where I'm trying to have a multi-chrome, polychrome effect, but using a very small set of paints, or as small a set of paints as possible. So like 3 to 5 paints, somewhere in there. I did something for, which one came first? Reaper Expo or Virtual ReaperCon? I don't remember. But the first one, when they had the quad color challenge, I had done this little goblin. And I kind of would like to paint the little goblin again, but it would be terrible for on stream because it's just so small. Where I did 4 colors, and I feel like one of the colors I picked wrong. And if I just changed out that one color, that the color scheme would be more effective. It worked, but there wasn't enough contrast. Because the problem with a small number of colors, if you're being really strict about it and you aren't saying like white and black plus 3 colors or 4 colors, which would be the normal way to do that. I mean, that's still a limited palette, but you can get a lot of colors out of that. But if you're really going, I just have 4 colors, and I have to be able to mix the lightest colors and the darkest colors out of those 4 colors, you're likely to not have a full contrast range of like equivalent to white, equivalent to black. And in this particular case, I did not, and contrast is kind of the problem with that guy. Like the colors are all fine, the contrast just wasn't quite enough there to pop. So I think if I switched to using true white, instead I was using like, I think it was yellow mold, I think, or Osirian sand. I used one of these, and I think if I switched it to true white, that the brown I used, I can make that yellowy and get all the same stuff done. Anyway, that'll be coming up in a future show at some point, but I'll probably also revisit this because we can try out some different colors, and then we can compare how using the different colors for the foundation that you mix the metallic into changes the result. But thank you all for coming today. And if you have requests or ideas for shows or things you'd like to see, feel free to send me a DM here or somewhere else where you see me occasionally. My Facebook artist page, stuff like that. I don't know where y'all hang out. Because, I'm also addressing the people who are watching this on YouTube. I guess you can just look for Bird with a Brush on YouTube. And can you send private messages on YouTube? I don't know. You can comment in a video too if you have an idea. But I know that our lurkers are probably not people who are wanting to make like public comments and whatnot. So feel free to contact me privately if there is an idea for a show, something Reaper makes that you'd like me to show you, so you can decide if you want to get it, or some experiments you want me to do so that I'm wasting my paint and you don't have to waste yours. Just let me know. And I have to imagine that Quindy has a cool raid for us, unless he's off doing something else today, my guess would be that we are going to go see a cool artist person. And then I will see you next week. Same bat time, same Reaper channel. So have fun. Yep, we're going to Art of Mike Disney. Say hi and spread the Reaper love, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.